I died on a Tuesday, not that it mattered which day it was. When you're drowning in bathwater because your husband held your head under while his mother watched from the doorway, the day of the week doesn't really register. What registered was the taste of lavender bath salts mixing with my own blood, the pressure of Marcus's hands on my shoulders, and my mother-in-law's cold voice saying, "Make sure she doesn't thrash too much. We don't want bruises." The last thing I saw was my reflection in that water, distorted, desperate, already looking like a ghost. Then nothing, then everything. I woke up 3 years earlier, gasping in my childhood bedroom, 26 years old again, staring at a ceiling I'd said goodbye to when I married into the Westbrook family. My phone was buzzing. Marcus's name lit up the screen. "Can't wait to marry you next month, my love." 1 month before our wedding, 3 years before my murder. I should have felt panic, confusion, the urge to call someone and explain the impossible. Instead, I felt something crystallize in my chest, cold, sharp, and absolutely certain. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew every betrayal, every cruelty, every calculated step that would lead to that bathtub. And I knew something they didn't. I knew how it ended. The Westbrook family didn't just want my money, though my inheritance from my parents was substantial. They wanted my name, literally. The Ashford name carried weight in our city's old money circles, weight that the Westbrooks, for all their nouveau riche pretensions, could never quite achieve. My great-grandfather had founded half the hospitals in the state. My grandmother's charity work was legendary. When you said Catherine Ashford, doors opened. Marcus had loved that about me, not me, the name. In my first life, I hadn't understood that until it was too late. I'd thought his attentiveness was love. I'd thought his mother's involvement in wedding planning was affection. I'd thought I was building a family. I'd been so stupid. The wedding happened exactly as I remembered. I walked down the aisle in the same dress, said the same vows, smiled for the same photos, but this time, I saw everything clearly. The way Marcus's eyes glazed over when I talked about my work at my family's foundation. The way his mother, Patricia, calculated the value of every wedding gift. The way his father, Richard, made calls during the reception to business contacts, dropping my family name like currency. I played my role perfectly. The loving bride, the eager daughter-in-law, the grateful girl who'd married up. And I waited. The first year unfolded like a script I'd already read. Marcus's late nights at the office, Patricia's daily calls with suggestions on how I should dress, speak, act, Richard's constant request to introduce him to my family's business associates, the slow, systematic isolation from my friends, the gradual erosion of my confidence. I let it happen because I was waiting for her. Vivian Monroe appeared exactly on schedule 6 months into our marriage. Marcus's new executive assistant, 23, blonde, ambitious, and so obvious in her designs on my husband that I almost felt embarrassed for her. In my first life, I'd been blindsided. I'd trusted Marcus when he said she was just helping with a big project. I'd believed him when he worked late every night for 3 months straight. This time, I knew better. This time, I had dinner with them. "Marcus, darling," I said one evening, 6 weeks after Vivian started, "why don't you invite your new assistant to dinner? You talk about her so much, I'd love to meet her." The panic in his eyes was delicious. "Oh, I don't think—" "I insist," I said, smiling. "After all, anyone who works as hard as you say she does deserves recognition. We'll make it a proper dinner party. I'll invite your parents too." I could see him calculating, trying to figure out if this was a trap. But there was no graceful way to refuse without raising suspicion, so he agreed. Vivian came to dinner wearing a dress that cost more than her monthly salary. Patricia noticed. Her eyes narrowed in that way they did when she was appraising something. Richard noticed too, though for different reasons. "Miss Monroe," I said warmly, playing the gracious hostess, "Marcus tells me you've been absolutely invaluable. I so appreciate you taking such good care of my husband." The double meaning sailed right over her head, but Patricia caught it. I saw the flicker of calculation in my mother-in-law's face. She was wondering if I knew, wondering if I was a threat to whatever plans she was forming. "Mrs. Westbrook is too kind," Vivian said, and I noticed how her hand brushed Marcus's when she reached for the wine. "Please call me Catherine," I said. Then casually, though I suppose I should get used to people calling me Mrs. Westbrook, I still think of myself as Catherine Ashford sometimes. 26 years of being an Ashford, it's hard to shake. "Your family name certainly carries more prestige," Richard said, too loudly, too eagerly. The Ashford legacy is remarkable. It is, I agreed, though I suppose legally I'm a Westbrook now. The Ashford name dies with me, at least in my line. Unless I have a daughter and give her my maiden name, but that seems unlikely. I smiled at Marcus. You've always said you wanted sons? I watched Patricia's eyes light up. I could practically see the wheels turning. Over the next few months, I let them think they'd won. Marcus grew bolder with Vivian. They stopped hiding their affair. I pretended not to notice when he came home smelling like her perfume. I pretended not to see the texts. I played the oblivious wife so well that even I was impressed. Meanwhile, I made other arrangements. My parents had died in a car accident when I was 23, leaving me their entire estate. The house, the investment portfolio, the foundation, everything. In my first life, I'd merged most of it with Marcus's accounts after we married. What's mine is yours, I'd said, trusting and naive. This time, I kept everything separate. Every account, every asset, every dollar remained solely in my name. When Marcus suggested joint accounts, I laughed it off. Let's keep some independence, Pasase said. It's more modern that way. But the real change I made was to my will. I scheduled an appointment with my family's attorney, Gerald Hopkins, who'd known me since I was born. He'd drawn up my parents' wills, managed their estate, and had always treated me like a daughter. Catherine, he said when I sat down in his office 8 months into my marriage, what brings you here? I need to update my will, I said. He raised an eyebrow as You're 27 years old and healthy. Shouldn't you and Marcus be thinking about this together? No, I said simply. This is my inheritance from my family. I want to ensure it stays with my family name. Your married name is Westbrook now, he pointed out gently. Legally, yes, but my legacy is Ashford. I leaned forward. Gerald, I want you to draft a will that leaves everything to Catherine Ashford. He blinked. You want to leave everything to yourself? I want to leave everything to the legal bearer of that name. Specifically to whoever holds both the first name Catherine and the last name Ashford at the time of my death. That's unusual. But possible? He studied me for a long moment. What aren't you telling me? Can you draft it or not? He sighed. I can. But Catherine, if you die while you're still Catherine Westbrook, and there's no one legally named Catherine Ashford, the estate would go to your next of kin. Then I'll make sure there's a Catherine Ashford, I said. He looked confused, but he drafted the will. I signed it, had it witnessed, and filed it away. Then I went home and waited. The tension in my marriage escalated right on schedule. Marcus grew distant. Patricia's criticisms became more pointed. Richard stopped pretending to be interested in anything I said. They were all waiting for something, though I was the only one who knew what. 14 months into my marriage, Marcus came home drunk at 3 in the morning and told me he wanted a divorce. In my first life, I'd been devastated. I'd begged him to reconsider, to go to counseling, to remember what we'd had. I'd cried for days. This time, I looked at him calmly and said, "Okay." He blinked, surprised. "Okay? If you're unhappy, then yes. We should divorce." "You're not going to fight for us?" He actually sounded offended. "Marcus, you've been sleeping with your assistant for 10 months. You come home smelling like her. You barely speak to me. Why would I fight for this?" His face went red. How did you? I'm not an idiot, I said quietly, but I've known for a while. I was waiting to see if you'd tell me yourself, but I guess that was too much to hope for. He deflated, guilt and relief mixing on his face. "I'm sorry," he said, though we both knew he wasn't. "I never meant to hurt you." "Yes, you did," I said. "But it's fine. Draw up the papers. I'll sign them." That caught him off guard, too. "You'll sign them?" "Marcus, I have no interest in being married to someone who doesn't want me." Let's just make this clean. Right, he said slowly. Clean, so about the assets. We'll each keep what we brought into the marriage, I said. I'm not interested in your money, and you're not entitled to mine. We had a prenup, remember? His face fell. He'd forgotten about the prenup, or hoped I had. His parents certainly hadn't forgotten. I knew Patricia had spent the last year trying to find loopholes. That seems fair, he said, trying to sound gracious. The divorce was quick. Marcus was so eager to be free that he signed everything without fighting. He got the house we'd bought together, which I'd insisted be in his name only. I got my inheritance, my family's foundation, and my freedom. I also got my name back. I'm legally changing my name back to Ashford, I told Gerald when the divorce was final. Back to your maiden name? He asked. Back to my real name, I corrected. I'm Catherine Ashford. I always was. The paperwork took 6 weeks. 6 weeks during which Marcus and Vivian's relationship became public. 6 weeks during which Patricia made it very clear to anyone who would listen that I'd been a disappointment as a daughter-in-law. 6 weeks during which the Westbrooks slowly pushed me out of every social circle we'd shared. I let them. I retreated to my family's estate, the house I'd grown up in, and focused on the foundation work my parents had started. I made donations, I attended charity events, I smiled in photos, and I waited, because I knew what was coming next. 18 months after my divorce was final, Marcus proposed to Vivian. The engagement announcement was in all the papers, along with a photo of her massive diamond ring, purchased, I was certain, with money he'd been saving for investments. Patricia threw them an engagement party that was really a spectacle. The Westbrook family had finally gotten what they wanted, a young, malleable bride who wouldn't outshine them with an old money name. I sent a generous gift and a polite note declining the invitation. Then I waited for the phone call. It came 3 weeks before their wedding. Catherine, Patricia said in that faux sweet voice she used when she wanted something. How are you, dear? I'm well, Patricia. Congratulations on Marcus's engagement. Thank you. That's actually why I'm calling. I have a rather unusual request, and I hope you'll hear me out. Here it was. Of course, I said. As you know, Vivian is joining our family soon, and while she's a lovely girl, she lacks a certain gravitas, a certain connection to the community's history. I see. The thing is, when you were married to Marcus, people responded to the Ashford name. Doors opened. Opportunities appeared. We've found that since your divorce, some of those advantages have disappeared. That must be difficult, I said sympathetically. Yes, well, she cleared her throat. Vivian is young, and she's open to suggestions. She's expressed interest in taking a more distinguished first name. Something classic and respected. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. What name did you have in mind? Catherine, Patricia said. We'd like to call her Catherine. Catherine Westbrook has such a lovely ring to it, don't you think? And since you've gone back to Ashford, the name is, available, in a sense. I let the silence stretch just long enough to sound uncertain. That's quite a request, Patricia. I know, dear. And normally I wouldn't dream of asking. But you and Marcus have moved on. You've both built new lives. And Vivian so admires you. The way you carried yourself, your charity work, your grace. She'd be honoring you, really, by taking the name. Honoring me. By taking my name and my ex-husband and the life they'd stolen from me. I suppose I don't have any legal claim to the name Catherine, I said slowly. If Vivian wants to change her name, that's her choice. So you'd be all right with it? Patricia pressed. You wouldn't object? Patricia, I can't stop someone from changing their legal name to whatever they choose. If Vivian wants to be Catherine Westbrook, that's between her and the courthouse. I could hear the smile in Patricia's voice. You're so gracious, Catherine. This is why we always respected you, you know. You have such class. Thank you, I said dryly. There's one more thing, Patricia added. We thought it might be nice to have a small ceremony when she changes her name. Something symbolic, welcoming the new Catherine into the family in a sense. We'd love for you to attend, to pass the torch, so to speak. They wanted me to watch. They wanted me to publicly bless this obscenity. I'll think about it, I said. Please do. It would mean so much to all of us. I hung up and stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I called Gerald. They've taken the bait, I said. Are you sure about this? He asked. Catherine, this is a dangerous game. It's not a game, I said. It's justice. Vivian legally changed her name 2 weeks before the wedding. The courthouse processed it quietly, and suddenly Vivian Monroe ceased to exist. In her place was Catherine Westbrook, the new, improved version, according to Patricia. The ceremony Patricia had mentioned turned out to be even more elaborate than I'd expected. She rented out a private room at the country club and invited 50 people to witness the symbolic transfer. She'd even had special invitations printed, "You are cordially invited to celebrate the naming of Catherine Westbrook." I almost didn't go. The humiliation was designed to break me, to prove that they'd won. But I needed to see it. I needed to watch them celebrate their victory, knowing what was coming. I wore white to the ceremony, not bridal white, cream actually, but close enough that Patricia's nostrils flared when she saw me. A power play, a reminder that I'd been Catherine first. Marcus looked uncomfortable when I arrived. Vivian, Catherine, I had to remember to call her that now, looked triumphant. She wore a blue dress that probably cost a fortune and smiled at me like we were old friends. Catherine Ashford, she said, using my full name like it was a title she was claiming. Thank you so much for coming. This means the world to me. I wouldn't miss it, I said honestly. You're so gracious about all of this, she gushed. I just want you to know I'll take such good care of the name. I know what it means to this community. I'm sure you will, I said. Patricia had prepared a whole speech about legacy and tradition and the importance of names. She talked about how Catherine was a name of strength and grace, how it had opened doors for their family, how they were thrilled to have a new Catherine Westbrook carrying that forward. And we're so grateful to Catherine Ashford, Patricia said, gesturing to me, for being so understanding about this unique situation. She's shown us what true class looks like. People applauded. I smiled and nodded, playing the gracious ex-wife. Then Vivian, Catherine, took the microphone. I just want to say, she began, her voice shaking with emotion, how honored I am to take this name. Catherine Ashford showed me what it means to be strong and dignified. She built a legacy with this name, and I promise to live up to it. I promise to make the name Catherine Westbrook mean something special. More applause. Marcus was beaming. Patricia looked like she just won the lottery. Richard was already working the room, telling business contacts about their new daughter-in-law, Catherine. I sipped my champagne and smiled. The wedding happened 2 weeks later. It was bigger than ours had been. More guests, more flowers, more everything. Patricia had spared no expense. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I saw the photos in the society pages. Marcus Westbrook weds Catherine Ashford, one headline read, using Vivian's former name. Another corrected it. Marcus Westbrook weds Catherine Westbrook in lavish ceremony. A third got it right. Westbrook heir marries Catherine in society wedding of the season. The name confusion was immediate. People didn't know which Catherine they were talking about. Old friends called me to ask if I'd remarried Marcus, if the divorce had been a misunderstanding. Business contacts sent congratulations to the wrong Catherine. Charity organizations mixed up our addresses. Patricia had gotten what she wanted, a Catherine Westbrook, but she hadn't anticipated the chaos. I, however, had anticipated everything. 6 months after their wedding, I scheduled another appointment with Gerald. I need you to update my will again, I said. He looked at me over his glasses. Let me guess, you want to make absolutely certain that Catherine Ashford, meaning you, is the sole beneficiary. Exactly, but I also want to add some specific provisions. If I die, the executor should make every effort to locate and verify the identity of Catherine Ashford. birth certificates, legal name changes, the works. And I want a clause that states if there is any ambiguity or legal challenge, the entire estate goes to charity. Catherine, you're 29 years old. Why are you planning for death? Because I've already died once, I thought. Because I know exactly when and how they'll try to kill me again. I'm being thorough, I said out loud. Humor me. He drafted the new will. It was airtight. Every loophole closed, every contingency planned. The language was clear. Everything went to Catherine Ashford, legally defined as the person born Catherine Marie Ashford on my birth date, who could provide documentation of continuous identity. What if you want to marry again? Gerald asked. What if you change your name? I won't, I said simply. But if you do, Gerald, I will never change this name again. I promise you that. He studied me with concern. Catherine, are you in some kind of trouble? No, I said. And it was true. The trouble was coming for someone else. I signed the will in late October, almost exactly 3 years after my rebirth. Then I went home and waited for the final act. It started subtly. Marcus began calling me more often, just to check in, he said, to see how I was doing, to make sure there were no hard feelings. Each time he'd mention how happy he was, how well married life was treating him, how Catherine, Vivian, was such a perfect wife. I let him talk. Then Patricia started calling. She wanted to grab lunch to stay connected, to make sure our families remained on good terms. She'd always cared about me, she said. Just because the marriage didn't work out didn't mean we couldn't be friends. I agreed to lunch. We met at the same country club where she'd held the naming ceremony. You look wonderful, Patricia said, studying me across the table. The single life agrees with you. Thank you. And your work with the foundation is so impressive. I saw the article in the paper about the new children's hospital wing. Your parents would be proud. I hope so. She sipped her wine, watching me. You know, Marcus was a fool to let you go. I nearly laughed at the audacity. It was mutual, I said. Still, you were good for him, good for our family. She paused. Catherine, the new Catherine, is lovely, of course. But she doesn't have your substance, your history. She has your history now, I pointed out. You gave her the name. A name isn't everything, Patricia said. And I could see her recalculating, wondering if they'd made a mistake. Too late, I thought. Speaking of names, Patricia continued carefully, I wanted to ask you about something. It's a bit delicate. Go ahead. Your will. Is everything still organized, updated? There it was. Why do you ask? I said innocently. Well, you're divorced now. I just want to make sure Marcus isn't still listed as a beneficiary or anything like that. It would be awkward if something happened and there was confusion. Something happened. Such a careful phrase. Oh, don't worry, I said. I've updated everything. Marcus won't inherit anything from me. Relief flooded her face. Good, that's good. And you've named other beneficiaries? Family, friends? I've made arrangements, I said vaguely. She wanted to push, but couldn't without revealing her real interest. We finished lunch with small talk and empty promises to do it again soon. When I got home, I found Marcus waiting outside my house. We need to talk, he said. I let him in, mostly out of curiosity. He stood in the foyer of my family home, a house he'd visited dozens of times during our marriage but never really seen. He'd always been focused on what it represented: money, status, connections. Now he looked around with barely concealed greed. What do you want, Marcus? I wanted to apologize, he said. Really apologize. I know I hurt you. I know the divorce was messy and I didn't handle things well, but I've been thinking a lot lately about what we had, what we could have had, and, I prompted when he paused. And I miss you, he said. I miss what we had. Catherine, my Catherine now. She's great, but she's not you. She doesn't understand me the way you did. I stared at him. Marcus, you're married. You've been married for 6 months. I know, but that doesn't mean I can't admit I made a mistake. He stepped closer. We were good together, Catherine. We could be again. Are you suggesting I become your mistress? I asked flatly. No, God, no. I'm just saying maybe we rushed the divorce. Maybe we gave up too easily. He reached for my hand. I let him take it, curious how far he'd go. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. It was almost impressive how sincerely he delivered these lies. He actually seemed to believe them himself. Marcus, I said gently, pulling my hand away. We're divorced. You're remarried. This conversation is inappropriate. I know, but no buts. You made your choice. You chose Vivian, Catherine. You married her. That's your life now. His face hardened. You're going to regret this. Regret what? Not becoming the other woman to my ex-husband? I think I'll survive. He left angry, and I knew I'd just accelerated the timeline. They'd wanted me to still care, to still be vulnerable. They'd wanted me isolated and desperate. The fact that I was neither panicked them because it meant I was unpredictable. A person who doesn't care about anything is dangerous. A person with nothing to lose is unstoppable, but I had everything to lose, my inheritance, my family's legacy, my life. That's what they didn't understand. I cared very much, I just cared about different things than they did. The holidays came. I spent Thanksgiving alone by choice, Christmas at a soup kitchen volunteering, New Year's Eve working on foundation paperwork. I was visible but untouchable, present but unreachable. And I waited. January brought new invitations from the Westbrooks, a dinner party, a charity event, a casual lunch. Each one designed to get me close, to assess my situation, to find my weakness. I accepted the dinner party invitation. It was at their house, the house Marcus and I had once lived in, now redecorated by Catherine Vivian in shades of white and gold. She greeted me at the door wearing a dress that looked suspiciously similar to one I used to own. Catherine, she said, hugging me like we were old friends, I'm so glad you came. Thank you for inviting me. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Patricia looked calculating. Richard was his usual bluff self, talking too loudly about business. We sat down to dinner, and the interrogation began. So, Catherine, Patricia said, passing me potatoes. How's the foundation work going? Very well. We're expanding our scholarship program. That's wonderful and expensive, I imagine. My parents left sufficient funds to support our mission. They were very successful, Richard chimed in. Your father's business acumen was legendary. He was careful with money, I agreed. And you've inherited that skill, I'm sure, Patricia said. Managing an estate like yours must be complicated. I have good advisors. That's smart, having everything properly organized and documented. She paused meaningfully. Especially at our age. You never know what might happen. There was the threat, barely veiled. Catherine Vivian laughed nervously. Mom, don't be morbid. We're all young and healthy. Of course, dear, Patricia said, patting her hand. I just mean it's important to be prepared. Catherine understands that, don't you? I do, I said, meeting her eyes. I've been very careful about documenting everything. Something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe. Or fear. The dinner continued with forced pleasantries. When I left, Marcus walked me to my car. My mother likes you, he said. I'm aware. She thinks we should stay close. Family is family, even after divorce. That's unusually sentimental of her. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Catherine, be careful. Of what? Of my mother. She doesn't like loose ends. I looked at him. This man who'd murdered me once, who'd watched me die and felt nothing. Is that what I am? A loose end? You're unpredictable. That makes her nervous. And when Patricia gets nervous, people get hurt? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Thank you for the warning, I said, getting in my car. Catherine, wait. He leaned down to my window. Whatever you're planning, don't. Just don't. Take the money and leave. Move across the country. Start over. But don't do whatever you're thinking about doing. What am I thinking about doing? I don't know, but I know that look in your eyes. That's not the look of someone who's moved on. Maybe I haven't moved on, I said. Maybe I'm exactly where I need to be. I drove away watching him shrink in my rearview mirror. February came, and with it, a cold snap that reminded me too much of my death. Cold bathroom tiles, cold water, cold hands holding me down. I spent the month reinforcing my security. Cameras around the property, a new alarm system, locks on every door. I told myself it was just being careful, but I knew what was coming. In my first life, they'd killed me in March, late March, when the weather was starting to turn warm and I'd been foolish enough to think winter was over. This time, I was ready. The first attempt was subtle, a car that ran a red light while I was crossing the street. I jumped back just in time, watched it speed away with tinted windows. Could have been an accident. Could have been. The second attempt was less subtle. Someone broke into my house while I was gone and tampered with the gas line. I smelled it as soon as I opened the door and called the gas company. The technician said it was lucky I caught it. Another few hours and the whole house might have exploded. Probably just age, he said. These old houses have old pipes. Probably, I agreed. I called Gerald that night. They're trying to kill me, I said without preamble. Catherine, that's a serious accusation. It's a serious truth. I need you to put something in motion. If anything happens to me, anything at all, I want an investigation, a thorough one, and I want my will executed immediately, exactly as written. This is insane, he said. We should go to the police. And tell them what? That I think my ex-husband's family wants me dead on what evidence? A car accident and a gas leak? They'll think I'm paranoid. Maybe you are. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather be paranoid and alive. Catherine. Just promise me, Gerald. If something happens, you'll make sure my will is executed exactly as written. Promise me you'll verify the identity of the beneficiary personally. I promise, he said reluctantly. The third attempt came on a Saturday in late March. I was at home, having deliberately kept my schedule light and predictable. I wanted them to know where I was. I wanted them to make their move. The doorbell rang at 9 p.m. I checked the camera. Marcus stood on my doorstep, alone, looking nervous. I opened the door. Marcus, this is unexpected. Can I come in? I need to talk to you. Every instinct screamed danger, but this was what I'd been waiting for. Of course. He came inside, looking around nervously. Are you alone? Should I be worried about that? A question? No, I need to tell you something, and I need to make sure no one else hears. We sat in the living room. He perched on the edge of the couch like he might bolt at any moment. My mother's planning something, he said. Isn't something bad? I'm aware. His eyes widened. You know? Marcus, your family has tried to kill me 3 times in the past month. Yes, I know. Oh, God. He put his head in his hands. I told her it was insane. I told her you weren't a threat. But she's convinced you're going to ruin us somehow. Ruin you how? I don't know. She won't tell me. She just keeps saying you're too smart, too careful, too dangerous. That you're planning something. I'm not planning anything, I said truthfully. The planning was done. Now I was just waiting. Then why are you still here? He burst out. Why haven't you moved away? Why are you still in this city, still visible, still alive? I finished. He flinched. I didn't mean, yes, you did. I stood up. Marcus, why are you really here? I wanted to warn you, one last time. Leave. Tonight. I'll give you money, help you disappear. Just go. Why would you help me? Because I don't want to watch you die, his voice cracked. I know what you think of me. I know I'm not a good person. But Catherine, you don't deserve what they are planning. You don't deserve any of this. I studied him. He looked genuinely distressed. Maybe there was a part of him, a small buried part, that remembered loving me, or at least remembered when he'd pretended to. When? I asked. What? When are they planning to do it? He hesitated. Tomorrow. They're coming here tomorrow. My mother, my father, and me. They'll make it look like an accident. A home invasion gone wrong, maybe, or a fall down the stairs. My mother has it all planned. And Catherine? Your wife? Does she know? No, God, no. She thinks we're just coming to talk to you about the foundation, about maybe collaborating on a charity event. How thoughtful. I smiled. Thank you for warning me, Marcus. You can go now. You're not going to leave? No. Then I can't save you, he said quietly. I don't need saving, I said. But you might. He left looking confused and frightened. I locked the door behind him and spent the rest of the night preparing. Sunday dawned bright and cold. I made coffee, read the paper, and waited. They arrived at 2 p.m., exactly as Marcus had warned. Patricia rang the doorbell while Richard and Marcus waited behind her. I checked the camera one more time, making sure everything was recording, then opened the door. Patricia, Richard, Marcus, this is a surprise. We were in the neighborhood, Patricia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Thought we'd stop by. All three of you? Family outing, Richard boomed. You know how it is. I let them in, even though every cell in my body screamed to run, but running was their plan. They wanted me, scared, panicked, easy to catch. I was not going to run. We sat in the living room. Patricia's eyes darted around, taking in exits, angles, possibilities. Marcus wouldn't meet my gaze. Richard sat too casually, like he was waiting for something. So, I said, what brings the Westbrook family to my door? We wanted to discuss the foundation, Patricia said. We think there's an opportunity for collaboration. Collaboration? The Westbrook Foundation, our charity arm, could partner with yours. Combine resources. It would be beneficial for both parties. By beneficial, you mean you'd gain access to my family's money and legacy. Her smile tightened. That's a cynical way to look at it. But accurate. Catherine, Marcus started. Don't, I said, looking at him. Don't pretend this is about charity. Don't insult my intelligence. Richard stood up. I think we're done here. I agree, I said. You should go. Not yet, Patricia said, and something in her voice changed, hardened. We have one more thing to discuss. What's that? Your will. The room went silent. My will? I repeated. Yes, we need to know who you've named as beneficiary. That's none of your business. It is if you've done something foolish, Patricia said. Something that might complicate matters. What matters would those be? She stood up slowly. Catherine, don't play games. We know you've left everything to Catherine Ashford. We know you think you're being clever. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. If you know, why are you asking? Because there is no Catherine Ashford, Richard said. You're Catherine Ashford, and if something happens to you, that name dies with you. Does it? I said softly. Patricia's eyes narrowed. What have you done? I've ensured my legacy goes to the rightful bearer of my name. You're the rightful bearer. Am I? I'm Catherine Marie Ashford, born 29 years ago. But names can be complicated, can't they? Especially when people change them. Understanding dawned on Patricia's face, followed immediately by rage. No, you couldn't have. Couldn't have what? You wouldn't dare. Oh, but I did, I smiled. Tell me, Patricia, what's your daughter-in-law's legal name? Catherine Westbrook, Marcus said automatically. Wrong, I said. Her legal name is Catherine Ashford Westbrook. She kept Ashford as her middle name when she changed her identity. It's right there on the legal documents if you bothered to read them carefully. Catherine Ashford, just like my will specifies. The color drained from Patricia's face. You're lying. Am I? Call your lawyer. Check the courthouse records. Vivian didn't just change her first name, she changed her entire identity. She wanted to be me so badly that she took my whole name. I leaned forward. Guess what that means? Marcus stood up, knocking over his chair. No, Mom, she's bluffing. She has to be bluffing. I'm not, said calmly. When I die, everything goes to Catherine Ashford. According to the legal system, there are currently 2 people with that name, me, Catherine Marie Ashford, and your wife, Catherine Ashford Westbrook. But when I die, there will only be one Catherine Ashford left. That's insane, Richard said. No court would honor that. Why not? The will is clear. Everything goes to the legal bearer of the name Catherine Ashford. Your daughter-in-law qualifies. In fact, she might have a stronger claim than I do since she changed her name more recently. The courts love intent, and she very intentionally chose that name. Patricia's hands were shaking. You planned this. Of course I did. You killed me once before. Did you think I'd let you do it again without consequences? The room went dead silent. What did you just say? Marcus whispered. I died, I said clearly. 3 years ago in a bathtub while your husband held me down and your mother watched. March 27th, a Tuesday. You made it look like I drowned accidentally while taking a bath. The investigation lasted all of 3 days before they called it an accident. You're insane, Patricia breathed. Am I, or am I the only sane person in this room? I stood up. I woke up 3 years ago, back in time, knowing everything that was going to happen. Every betrayal, every cruelty, every step of your plan. And I've spent 3 years preparing for this moment. There's no such thing as time travel, Richard said, but his voice shook. Then how do I know about the bathtub? How do I know you plan to kill me tomorrow, that you'd make it look like a home invasion? How do I know every single thing you've done before you do it? Marcus collapsed back onto the couch. Oh, God. I let you rename her, I continued, looking at Patricia. I let you give her my name. I encouraged it even, because I knew that you'd try to kill me to get my inheritance. And I knew that when you did, everything would go to Catherine Ashford, but not me, your precious daughter-in-law. We'll challenge the will, Patricia said desperately. On what grounds? That you don't want your daughter-in-law to inherit? That you'd rather the fortune stay with the woman you're planning to murder? Good luck explaining that to a judge. We won't kill you, Marcus said. We won't. Too late, I said. You already tried 3 times this month, and I have evidence, cameras, recordings, documentation, everything. If I die under even slightly suspicious circumstances, it all goes to the police. And then, Catherine, your Catherine, gets my fortune while you all go to prison. You're bluffing, Patricia said, but she didn't sound certain. Am I? Do you want to test that theory? Go ahead. Kill me. See what happens. The rage on her face was beautiful. She'd been outplayed, and she knew it. There's another option, I said. You leave me alone, completely. No more accidents, no more attempts, no more contact. You go back to your lives, I go back to mine, and we pretend none of this ever happened. And if we don't, Richard asked, then I go to the police right now with everything I have. The gas line, the car, the break-in. Marcus's warning last night, which I recorded, by the way, all of it. And even if they can't prove you tried to kill me, the scandal alone would destroy you. Patricia's face was white. You've thought of everything. I've had 3 years to plan, I said. Did you really think I'd waste them? They left without another word. Marcus looked back once, his face a mask of horror and something that might have been respect. I watched them drive away, then sat down on the couch and let myself shake. It was done. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. The Westbrooks avoided me. No more calls, no more invitations, no more attempts on my life. I went back to my work with the foundation, attended charity events, lived my life. But I underestimated Patricia's rage. 3 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. Catherine Ashford? A woman's voice said. Speaking. This is Catherine Westbrook. I think we need to talk. Vivian. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She arrived early, looking nervous and angry in equal measure. She'd lost weight, I noticed. Marriage to Marcus was clearly taking its toll. Thank you for meeting me, she said stiffly. Of course. I'm going to be direct. My mother-in-law told me about your will, about how you've left everything to Catherine Ashford, about how that might include me. It does include you, I said. Legally, you're Catherine Ashford Westbrook. The will specifies Catherine Ashford. If I die, there's a strong argument that you inherit. I don't want your money, she said. No. No, I want you to change your will. Leave your money to charity, to a hospital, to anyone but me. Why? Because this is insane, she burst out. Because Patricia looks at me like I'm a threat now. Because Marcus barely speaks to me. Because Richard asked me if I would consider changing my name back, removing Ashford. And I can't. The legal process takes months, and it would look suspicious now. Like I was trying to avoid inheriting from you, which I am, but... She pressed her hands to her face. This is a nightmare. It's not my nightmare, I said calmly. You did this on purpose. Yes. Why? What did I ever do to you? I looked at this woman who'd stolen my husband, worn my name, lived my life. You took everything from me. I didn't even know you when Marcus and I started dating. You took my husband. He wasn't yours anymore. You were divorced. He was never mine, I said. That's the point. He married me for my name, my money, my connections. Then he married you and gave you that same name thinking you could provide the same benefits. You weren't a person to any of them. You were a tool. She stared at me. I love him. I loved him too, once, and they killed me for it. What? Nothing, I said. The point is, Catherine, you're in the same trap I was in. They're using you. And now you're a threat to them because if I die, you become rich beyond their wildest dreams and they can't control you anymore. So what am I supposed to do? You could divorce Marcus, change your name back to Monroe, walk away. I can't. I signed a prenup. If I initiate divorce, I get nothing. Then wait for him to divorce you. He will eventually when Patricia convinces him you're too dangerous to keep around. You're insane, she whispered. No, I'm free. You're still trapped. I stood up. I'm not changing my will, Catherine. If you want out of this situation, you'll have to save yourself, just like I did. I left her sitting there, looking lost and frightened. The months passed. Summer came, then fall. I heard through the society rumor mill that Marcus and Catherine's marriage was strained. She'd moved into the guest bedroom. He was traveling more for work. Patricia was making pointed comments about grandchildren and stability. I focused on my foundation work and tried not to think about them. Then, in November, I got another call from Gerald. Catherine, you need to sit down for this. What's wrong? Marcus Westbrook is dead. The room spun. What? Car accident last night. He was driving home from a business dinner and went off a bridge. They're saying he might have fallen asleep at the wheel. Might have? The investigation is ongoing, but Catherine, his wife, she's now a widow, and she's very interested in your will. Of course she is. There's more. Patricia Westbrook has already contacted me. She wants to discuss the estate, wants to make arrangements for when you die. She actually said that, when, not if. She's going to try again, I said. I think so. And now she's desperate. Her son is dead, her family's reputation is hanging by a thread, and the only thing standing between her and financial ruin is you. What should I do? Go to the police, tell them everything. They'll think I'm crazy. Catherine, you might be in real danger. I've been in real danger for 3 years. That hasn't changed. But something had changed. Marcus was dead. The timeline had shifted. In my original life, I'd died and Marcus had lived. Now Marcus was dead and I was alive. What did that mean for the future? I called Catherine Westbrook that night. We need to talk, I said. I have nothing to say to you. Marcus is dead. Silence. I didn't kill him, I said. But I think I know who did. The police said it was an accident. Marcus doesn't have accidents. He's too careful. Someone killed him, Catherine. And I think it was his mother. That's insane. Is it? He was the heir, the beloved son. But he was also the weak link. He warned me you were planning to kill me. He tried to help me escape. Patricia couldn't trust him anymore, so she eliminated him. You're making this up. Am I? Think about it. Think about how convenient it is. He dies, his life insurance pays out to the family, and now there's no one in the way of Patricia trying to kill me and claim my inheritance through you. Through me? You're still legally Catherine Ashford. If I die, you inherit. And if you inherit, Patricia will find a way to take it from you. Probably by having you killed too. Oh God, she whispered. We're both in danger now, I said. We need to work together. How? I have evidence against Patricia. Recordings, documentation, everything. But I need your help to prove she killed Marcus. I don't have any proof. Yes, you do. You lived with him. You know his habits. You know he wouldn't fall asleep at the wheel. Help me build a case. There was a long pause, then, what do I get out of this? Protection, a chance to survive. And maybe, if we're lucky, justice. I want the inheritance, she said bluntly. If we do this, if we bring Patricia down, I want your fortune. I laughed. You're honest, I'll give you that. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to be named Catherine, to be caught up in your revenge plot. But I'm here now, and I'm not going to pretend I don't want the money. All right, I said. If I die of natural causes, legitimately, you inherit. But if I'm murdered, everything goes to charity, and Patricia gets nothing. Deal? Deal. We met the next day and spent hours going through everything. She gave me Marcus's phone. She'd kept it, even though the police had returned it after examining it. Together, we found text messages between Marcus and his mother. Coded language, but clear enough. Too much of a liability. Can't trust him anymore. Need to handle this permanently. And then, the day before he died. It's done. Tomorrow night. We took everything to the police. They were skeptical at first. Rich people killing each other over inheritance sounded like a soap opera, not real life, but the evidence was compelling. The texts, the recordings I'd made of Patricia's threats, the documented attempts on my life. They opened an investigation into Marcus's death. The scandal was immediate and enormous. The Westbrook family, pillars of society, implicated in murder. Patricia denied everything, of course, hired expensive lawyers, claimed I was delusional, that Catherine Westbrook was lying for money, that Marcus's death was a tragic accident. But the evidence didn't lie. The trial took 8 months. Patricia was charged with conspiracy to commit murder for the attempts on my life, and with the murder of her own son. Richard was charged as an accessory. The prosecution painted a picture of a family so obsessed with wealth and status that they'd kill for it. Catherine Westbrook testified against them. So did I. We sat in that courtroom day after day, telling our stories, presenting our evidence. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty on all counts. Patricia was sentenced to life in prison. Richard got 20 years. Their family empire collapsed overnight. The companies sold off, the properties liquidated. The Westbrook name became synonymous with greed and murder. Catherine and I stood outside the courthouse after the verdict, watching the press swarm. "It's over," she said. "Almost," I replied. "What do you mean?" "We still have to figure out what to do about the will." She looked at me warily. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we make a new arrangement. You keep the name Catherine Ashford if you want it. Build a life with it. But we split the inheritance. Half to you, half to my foundation. You get financial security. I get to honor my parents' legacy." "You'd do that?" "You helped me bring down the people who killed your husband. You deserve something for that." "They killed him to get to you," she pointed out. "True, which makes this the least I can do." We shook hands. Gerald drew up a new will, properly splitting everything. Catherine Ashford Westbrook got half of my estate, enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. The foundation got the other half, ensuring my parents' work would continue. 2 years later, I stood in the new children's hospital wing named after my parents. Catherine Westbrook, she'd dropped the Ashford finally, stood beside me holding her daughter. "What's her name?" I asked. "Vivian," she said. "After my mother. I figured I'd used enough borrowed names for one lifetime." I smiled. "It's a good name." "Thank you, Catherine. For everything. Thank you for helping me survive." We parted ways after that, occasional acquaintances rather than friends, but no longer enemies. She built a quiet life, remarried eventually, stayed out of the spotlight. I ran my foundation and lived in my family home and never changed my name again. Catherine Marie Ashford. That's who I was born as, that's who I died as once, and that's who I'd live as for as long as this second life lasted. The Westbrooks had wanted my name for its power, its prestige, its value. They'd killed for it, schemed for it, destroyed lives for it, but they'd never understood what the name really meant. It meant legacy, it meant family, it meant carrying forward something bigger than yourself. And that was something they could never steal, no matter how many times they tried. I was Catherine Ashford. I always had been, and I always would be. They could kill me, rename me, try to erase me, but I'd made sure that even in death I'd have the last word, and that word was my name.